We have a saying in the academy, be brave quicker. Come and have a conversation with somebody that you know who's in the profession, or reach out to them on LinkedIn. People are really open to being helpful if you just ask, if you're brave enough to ask. So yeah, I think having conversations with people, as I said, get access to shadowing somebody for a day, really understand what it's like day in the life, and people are only too happy to help.
Hi, I'm Amy Austin, News Editor at FT Advisor. Thank you for joining me for this fireside chat with Foottit, where we will chat about how we can encourage more young people, in particular women, to the profession. So thank you for joining me today, G.
Thank you for having me.
So to start off, I thought we could kind of have a chat about how you actually came into the advice profession and what was your roots of entry into.
Absolutely. So I've got to cast my mind back quite a few years for this, but I feel I was quite fortunate, really. And I know I've listened to lots of these episodes and people say they didn't necessarily plan to come into financial services. I think I maybe did. When I was at school and doing A-levels, or actually prior to that, you get some work experience, I think in year 10, I went to work in an advice business, and one of the teachers at my school was the wife of the guy who owned the business. So that was my first, I guess, glimpse in, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the people, I loved coming into the city, the buzz of everything. So when I finished my A-levels, I actually managed to get a job in that business as an administrator. And my plan was to be there for a gap year before going to university to study business studies. But once I started earning my own money and that sense of independence, I didn't want to look back. So I chose to stay in that business and do professional qualifications. I stayed there for about 3 years before I then switched across to what I describe as the provider side, where my clients actually became then the financial advisors and business owners. So I've worked in pensions, in fintech, and in discretionary fund management. So it's been a really great profession, and I've absolutely loved it.
So you've done a bit of everything.
I have.
That's the thing. I think you're quite lucky in that you kind of knew what you wanted to do and you kind of sought it out and thought, do you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Obviously, other people aren't so lucky. So how is it that we now, bring other people like yourself at that age into the profession? What kind of things could we be doing?
I think it's a really good question. And if you think back to when you were at school and where I was at school, I don't think things have changed too much, even though it was some time ago, around the career advice and the, I guess, access to different types of careers. I feel like they're still quite traditional, or we could flip it the other way and say some professions are just really good at engaging school age and university age students. So I think law, accountancy, those professional doctors or whatever. So I feel like those professions are still quite high on the agenda when you're in schools, and those are probably the types of careers that you hear about. So I think as a profession, we could be better at getting into schools and into universities and talking about what it is that we do. And from a financial advice perspective specifically, I feel like financial services is quite broad, which is the beauty of it. So coming into financial services, there's lots of different departments and types of role that you can have. But financial advice in particular, we need to be in schools more talking about financial education, and I was really pleased to see that is coming now onto the curriculum in 2028. So I hope that will bring more awareness of the profession to young people.
Yeah, and do you think that it should be advisors themselves going into schools and being like, hey, I'm an advisor, this is what I do, this is what my life looks like, and this could be you? Or do you think it's more down to kind of, the firms themselves, or, maybe even wider and look at the regulator and stuff like that? Where do you think it kind of...
I think it's going to have to be a combination of all of the above. I know the government's obviously heavily involved in what the curriculum will look like, but prior to that, at St James's Place, we have a financial education accreditation. So whether you're a financial advisor in our partnership or an employee like myself, you can go through that, which means you can then go into schools. But we also partner with charities that go into schools. So I feel like the charities have had a huge part to play in A, getting it on the curriculum, and B, doing a really good job. But they are charities, so they rely on volunteers like people from St James's Place and other businesses that sign up to them as well. So Red Start Educate, and I can't remember the other one's name. I'll think of it in a minute.
It will come to you in a second.
And so, yeah, I really enjoy those kind of volunteering days and getting into the schools and just seeing the impact that they have. And actually, the studies show, there were formal studies that have been submitted to the government, that children do remember those days. So if you go back to the same children once a year, the next year they remember what they did the previous year before. And that's quite something. I think having an external body coming into the school. They remember it more.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it will look like on the curriculum, and obviously they'll need the tools in the teacher's hands. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I think, younger people, children in schools, they are more impressionable and you do remember things. I mean, I really remember things from my school age, like how to cross the road and the horror stories you'd hear from, like, if you've done something and it scared me. So I'm just thinking,
Exactly.
and it's stuck in my mind. So yeah, I think maybe having an advisor in and being like, you know what, this is what you could do with your money. And I think nowadays young people are so focused on money and how to earn money. And do you think this will then translate into them maybe looking at these roles more often?
I hope so. I absolutely hope so. And as you say, and it's role models as well. So who are the people going in? And we're here to talk about women. So are some of those people who are going in to talk about money, female faces?
Yeah.
Are they, actively being role models in the profession? And whether it's young people coming in or career changes even, for our academy, often their second career is that come and join us and train to become financial advisors. So it's just making sure we've got relatable role models, case studies, stories that we're telling, which are really authentic. And they're not sugarcoating it either. They're saying about, like you said, what does a day in the life, a week in the life actually look like and feel like in this role? And providing access to maybe work experience, shadowing somebody for a day. I think those things are really important as well.
Yeah, and how do academies play a role in bringing women in particular into the profession?
So I think it's something that we really need to double down on. So if I give you some really high level statistics of the profession, where we are in terms of diversity on the gender front. So the profession is stubbornly stuck at around 17 to 19% women. At SJP in our partnership, we've got just under 5,000 financial advisors in the partnership, and we're at 20% females in that population. Our academy's been running since 2012, and at the moment in training, the makeup is about 27% women, which is great, really positive progress. But because of our scale, that doesn't move the needle particularly quickly on the overall balance in the partnership. So we really want to double down and focus on telling those female stories and being where women can actually find and see those stories. I think women are quite hard on ourselves, and particularly with careers and career change, there are some statistics that suggest that women like to tick, 80-90% of a job description before they'll apply, versus men happy with 50 to 60%. Oh, I'll apply and give it a go with confidence. So by telling those real stories and case studies, we want to make it, relatable. I can see myself doing that. I'm currently a teacher, for example, which may be on paper doesn't feel relatable to being a financial advisor, but there are so many transferable skills. So by telling those real stories, removing that barrier for the women to feel the need to have to tick every single box on the, what a job role description looks like. So we're really heavily going to lean into that this year, and obviously making sure our opportunity is where people can find us. So where are women looking for their next job opportunity, and making sure we're in those places.
The advice profession is flexible enough in that, you can change your hours, you can work around the school run, etc. But then there's other things, like seeing a client late at night or in their house that women might not feel as comfortable to do as men. So what would maybe need to change, or how can we kind of work around women to bring them into the profession? Absolutely.
I feel like there's a bit of a hangover from the past in terms of preconceptions. You have to work in an office from this time to that time. And actually I feel like SJP pioneered flexible working with its partnership model back in the 90s when we started. So our partnership's made up of 2,500 individual businesses. So none of our employees give advice. It's all people within their own businesses, if you like. So when you come through our training, you can be an advisor in one of those businesses or start your own. And with that autonomy, you can choose when and how you work. So whether that's using some of our offices to have client meetings and for women to feel more safe in that environment rather than maybe going to clients' houses potentially, but also the hours of the day that you work. So it could be, like you said, the school run. I'm going to fit in the school run in my morning or perhaps in my afternoon 1 or 2 times a week, and maybe later those evenings I'll work once my child's gone to bed, is an example. So it's a great profession because you flex when you work, but it doesn't impact your earning potential or the amount that you work. And the women that come to us are really motivated, and they're ambitious and they want to achieve those things. But different people flex their diary in different ways. So one of the ladies that's in a case study on our YouTube channel came from the banking environment where she did find it quite inflexible in terms of she had to be in the office at certain times of the day. She didn't get a choice on the type of client she saw. They were all clients of the bank already. And coming to SJP, she thought she was going to have to do all the networking in the evening in Canary Wharf, she said. And she said, I do go to networking, but I do it in the day, in the school hours, and I make it work around me. So if you said to a client asked for a meeting at 7 o'clock on a Thursday, and you explained to them that you couldn't do that, is there any other way that any other time that make it flexible around the client too? You can make it work for you. So I genuinely feel like it's a brilliant profession for women. And actually, when we speak to the women that have been through our academy, yes, it's hard initially. You've got to study hard. You've got to get your client base up and running. So the first 2 years are the most challenging. But once you're through that, all of them say, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
Because they've built a business around what's important to them outside of work without impacting how much they work or what they can achieve.
That's the thing. It takes time to see the positives come through,
Yeah.
doesn't it? And to kind of round up, if there was one thing you could change about the profession, what would it be to kind of encourage more women into it?
I think we're doing a reasonable job at the moment. It's just what more can we do? So how can we appear more in front of where the women are looking for their careers? So we have affinity partnerships that we partner with. So Women in Banking and Finance is one, there's an obvious one, career returners. There are lots of other great partners that we partner with where we know it's got a predominantly female audience. But I think collectively it's let's all share those female stories. Let's all make those role models really visible to the rest of the world. And the more we talk about it, hopefully the more people will be attracted to it. And interestingly, we haven't even spoken about the wealth transfer to women, so the importance of it. So I think the end of last year was the point where the UK tipped to have its finances, its money in control of women for the first time. Now, I mentioned before the profession is still just 20% female financial advisors. So it's really important right now that as a profession, not just SJP, we all lean into the fact that our advice community needs to mirror the people that are in control of the money. And how are we changing our propositions? And do we have an advisor population that really understands the needs and wants of women? Yeah. And there are often nuances and differences between what men want and what women want. And there's different intricacies through that person's lifetime as well. So there might be more career breaks through having children, less earnings over their lifetime, and all of that impacts how much they can save towards their retirement. So having a plan that really works for a woman's lifetime is really important.
Yeah, I think we're just going to really see some changes coming through, in like the next few years with this wealth transfer. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how it kind of reflects into the advice profession. But
absolutely,
I guess it's a watch this space.
Yeah, and also I think one of the things I would say to people looking to come into the profession, whether they're first careerists or second careerists, we have a saying in the academy, be brave quicker. Come and have a conversation with somebody that you know who's in the profession, or reach out to them on LinkedIn. People are really open to being helpful.
Yeah.
If you just ask, if you're brave enough to ask. So yeah, I think having conversations with people, as I said, get access to shadowing somebody for a day, really understand what it's like day in the life, and people are only too happy to help.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me today, G. It's been lovely having you on. Here's a quick reminder of our weekly interview series, 51 for 51, where we speak to women across financial services in the run-up to International Women's Day. For more videos, interviews, podcast features, and all of the latest news, visit ftadvisor.com and see you soon.